All right, going to go ahead and get started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today to learn more about Fresh Food Connect. Please be advised that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on our website at a later date. For those who don't know me, my name is Catherine Dorby. I am the Agency Grants and Communications Coordinator here at the Food Bank. Joining me today, we will have Laura Lavitt from Fresh Food Connect to tell us more about the program. Laura joined Fresh Food Connect in 2019 as the Product and Operations Director and is excited to provide more opportunities to connect food and community nationwide. Laura has almost 20 years of experience in community-based food work, including Denver Urban Gardens, American Community Gardening Association, Florida Organic Growers, and Sprout City Farms. Outside of work, you'll find Laura in the garden or in the kitchen finding new ways to prepare vegetables. Of course, I think at the moment she's got a lot of snow over where she's at, so I don't think she's doing much gardening today. But during the meeting, please stay muted and use the chat function to ask any questions, and I'll be sure to present the questions at an appropriate moment. So please join me in welcoming Laura. Laura, please take it away.
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm going to share my screen. So can you see my screen? Hopefully it says Fresh Food Connect at the top. It's always a little weird with me.
All good.
Great. And if you do have questions, like Catherine said, feel free to add them into the chat. There'll be a time for questions at the end, but also I'm happy to interject as needed. So like Catherine said, I'm the Product and Operations Director here at Fresh Food Connect. I am based in Denver, Colorado, where it is currently snowing. We're supposed to get, they were forecasting 6 to 10 inches, and we've at least already got the 6. So it's continuing to snow, and we'll see. I also am going to apologize in advance. I have a cat who loves to join meetings. She's currently taking a nap kind of next to me. So we'll see if she joins, but just it's the reality of my life. She's very poorly trained. So, so I'm super excited to share about Fresh Food Connect with you all. So today what we're going to talk about is, what is Fresh Food Connect? How does it work? What are expectations? What's the value of our platform? We'll have some time for questions and next steps. And like I said, feel free to add your questions into the chat. So Fresh Food Connect, at our core premise, we're a tech nonprofit that has an app to help connect backyard and community gardeners to hunger relief organizations with a long-term vision of how are we able to grow more food within our own communities and share that within our own communities. And so we were started as a pilot project here in Denver in 2016 when 3 organizations here came together to ask the question, if gardeners had an easy avenue to participate in hunger relief efforts, would they? The answer was resoundingly yes, and we've really just grown from there. And as tech goes, needs to get updated. So we updated to a mobile app in 2020 with grand plans. And as everyone knows, all plans in 2020 have been changed. So that is basically what we do. And you all are very versed in what does food insecurity look like in your community. You know that 1 in 10 Americans are facing food insecurity, while 40% of food is wasted. Don't need to belabor all the stats with you all. You all live it and know it on a daily basis in community. And so, like I said, as we were started as a pilot project, we were really looking at like what's an untapped resource, both within that healthy food access piece and also with that reducing food waste. And so a lot of Americans garden. 1 in 3 Americans garden. That's a lot of people who are growing things. And you can grow a lot in a small space. And we did a survey a couple of years ago asking our participants, had they donated before their garden produce, and 89% said they hadn't. So we really feel like we are tapping into an untapped resource, a huge potential that's seasonal here in Denver. Like I said, we have snow. In New York, you all have ice. And, it definitely is seasonal, but when you start to sort of think about the potential, it can be really impactful. And so I'd like to just share two gardeners who are here in Denver, kind of their story. So hopefully this works. We'll see. Oh, there it goes.
So we started out in 2020 with a small above ground garden bed, and we grew a lot more than we anticipated. Then we were looking at options within our community for being able to donate excess produce, knowing that there was a need there. And that's where we found Fresh Food Connect, and enjoy being a part of the community and being able to kind of use our resources to help in that way.
Yeah, definitely. We exceeded expectations so radically that we quickly were overwhelmed with all of the food that our yard was producing. And now that you guys gave us that nice list of what our community wants, we know that there's some plants that we can put in that we may not even ever want to harvest some of those things for ourselves this year. We plan to donate a lot of tomatillos and a lot of things that people actually recognize culturally in our neighborhood. So we're really excited about that.
So Heather and Terrence are two gardeners here in Denver who, like they said, started growing, during the pandemic. Then we were like, oh gosh, we have way too much. What do we do? They found out about Fresh Food Connect. They are really kind of our hope and desire, because yes, we want gardeners to donate their extra produce, but we also want to move past that, and we really want to engage local community members in this work, because we really just feel like a more engaged community is a better fed community. So they've moved from, oh, we have this extra, what do we do with it, to now we're planting intentionally to share within our community. And Heather has actually now gotten more involved with Denver Food Rescue, which is the partner organization they work with, and is actually on their board of directors now. And so that's sort of the ideal of what we want to move folks from, is not just like, oh, I have this extra, what do I do with it, but really planting with intentionality and moving beyond donations to that engaged community, that because I think a lot of people just don't realize the food insecurity that's in their own community. And Feeding America recently put out a report that there's food insecurity in literally every county in our entire country. And I think a lot of times there's just that disconnect of it's not in my neighborhood, it's not in my community, but it is. And this is a way that gardeners can meaningfully give back to their own community in a very tangible and meaningful way. And if you all are on Instagram, they have a really great Instagram account called Homesteading in Denver. You should definitely follow them, because they're amazing gardeners. They're new gardeners, but they are amazing gardeners. It is quite impressive. So would encourage you to check them out if you do those things on Instagram. Oh, now I'm not gonna. How do I advance? Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's the next slide. So like I said, we are a tech nonprofit. We have an app. So how does it actually work? So the app is zip code based, and we work with local organizations that are on the ground doing that local hunger relief work. They activate zip codes, put in information about how gardeners can make those donations. And then when gardeners download the app, they put in their zip code and are then associated with that group, which we refer to as operator, so that they can see what's local and relevant for them. So the app is really just meant to help with those connection points. In our experience, gardeners are very generous, but don't always know the how, when, where. And a lot of times organizations like yourselves are fairly strapped and don't want to answer 20 questions about when, where, how, especially knowing that they're going to be small donations. So the idea of this is to provide those connection points, to be able to aggregate that produce, and also to be able to provide you the data and information about who is donating what, and have that be able to connect it back to, with Sally, who donated 5 pounds of tomatoes, for example. So as I mentioned, we work with local organizations. The idea of this is small donations from hopefully a large number of gardeners that can aggregate to a meaningful amount. And there's, in terms of the app, there are 3 roles within the app. There's a gardener, a courier, and a nonprofit or operator. I use those terms interchangeably, but that would essentially be your type of organization. And so when a gardener downloads the app, puts in their zip code, they are associated with that operator. Right now, zip codes are exclusive. So, you would activate a certain number of zip codes. They then would be associated with you. The reason why we approach it that way is we really do want to be fostering those local connections. And so, like Terrence and Heather, it's not just that we want them to donate their extra produce into whomever, we want them to donate it to Denver Food Rescue and know that they're donating to Denver Food Rescue and know what Denver Food Rescue does and are able to get more involved and tell their friends and family. So there is some intention around the exclusivity of zip codes. There's also a technical backend piece of it. And in Denver, we have about 12 different operators that are operating in different parts of the city. Here we have a very collaborative, food and garden kind of space. And so, whether it's going to Denver Food Rescue or Kaizen Food Rescue or Project Worthmore, it's all getting to folks that need it in the community, and they approach it with that lens. So we're able to, engage the local community, the local garden community here, knowing that it's going hyper local within their community to where it's needed most. So there are 2 functionalities with the app. You can ask gardeners to drop off at a location or multiple locations. So if you have a facility or you already have a partnership with some community gardens and you want to put coolers at those gardens or that type of thing, they would be able to select their location, which would then show the times that are available for that location, which would be predetermined by you all. So if you're trying to aggregate these small donations and you do distributions on a Wednesday, and so you want to take produce either just Wednesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, you can give those parameters. And generally, I do encourage operators to think about when their distribution is. Some of you might do daily distribution, some of you might do only weekly, and so we try to correlate that with when the food is going out. So it's literally getting harvested and in somebody's hand as quickly as possible. So I'm a gardener myself. I participate as a gardener myself with my community garden, and I am harvesting stuff on Wednesday morning. It's in somebody's hands literally later that morning or early afternoon. So in terms of especially in nutritional content, like you really just can't get better than that. And we do hear that from our operators time and time again about how the food that they're getting through Fresh Food Connect is some of the best food that they're getting. I'm sure a lot of you all do food rescue, which is super important. But sometimes I think that food is like, it's edible, it needs to be eaten, and maybe that day. Whereas this stuff is getting picked at its peak and is super fresh. So there's the other functionality within the app is, if it makes sense for your organization and you have capacity or you have volunteers or that type of thing, you can also go and pick up from gardeners' homes or community gardens. So this is another reason why the app is zip code based, to keep that geographically limited, to make that make more sense. Because, for some of your folks, it sounds like are in fairly rural areas. Zip codes are density based, population density based. So your zip code might be ginormous, or it might be really small. And it might make sense, especially if you have folks that are interested in doing that. This does allow for that option. This also is something that you can say, like, we're willing to pick it up, or willing to pick it up on an example for Wednesday mornings and between 8 and noon, because that's when your volunteer is available. You then let gardeners know, like, this is when we're willing to pick it up. They would put it out, they would enter their donation and put it out on, their porch or, somewhere obvious, that then those either volunteers or staff could go pick up. So to be able to do that pickup, there's a courier role. And so that's the role that has all the logistics to be able to do that pickup. So they would be able to see all the donations that are available for pickup. They would claim them, they would go pick them up, and they would take them then to wherever you told them to take it. As an operator, you also do have access to a mobile version. And I would say generally operators don't use it very much. More of what they use is a web app. So the web app is where you're going to be able to do all your administrative kind of pieces, pull reports, be able to, pull a report on who donated what, in the month of July. You can download your gardeners to be able to, you have an event coming up and you want to invite them to participate, or you need volunteers, or you just want to send them your appeal letter at the end of the year. However you want to engage your gardeners is up to you, but you would have access to their contact information. So in terms of, I'm throwing the word operator out and saying we have partnership, but what does that mean? So in terms of, what are the expectations? What you can expect from Fresh Food Connect is the use of the app and also the web app. So like I said, you can pull those reports and get that information. You can add in the information about how gardeners can make that donation. You can make changes to that. We also are expanding. And so we have, we started in one zip code here in Denver, and we're now working with 81 organizations across the US in over 2,100 zip codes. And in 28 states, not the whole states, but within parts of the states. And they're all really awesome, cool people, like I'm sure all of you are, who are doing cool stuff within, food rescue, hunger relief, food waste, food access. And so we bring you all together to do some shared learning, both around Fresh Food Connect, but also kind of larger topics as well. We also provide any technical assistance that you or your gardeners may have, which hopefully is minimal to none, but things happen. So we provide that. And then in terms of how do we get the word out to gardeners, we do it very collaboratively. And so we approach it this way for a few reasons. One, like I already mentioned, we really want to support those local connections. So we don't want gardeners thinking I'm donating Fresh Food Connect. They're not donating Fresh Food Connect. They're donating to your organization. We want them to know that your organization and foster those local connections. The other reason why we approach it this way is because I'm not in New York. As I mentioned to some of you on the front end of this call, I was actually born in Buffalo, but I haven't lived there since I was 5 and I'm old. So like that was a very long time ago. I do not know your community. You all do. You're in community. You know your community. You already have partnerships. You already have connections. We want to build off of that community-based effort and be a value add to the work that you're already doing. So what does that look like? So what that looks like is we provide tools, templates, resources, checklists, graphics, suggestions, but do rely on our operators to get the word out on a local level. So for instance, we use Canva, which is an online design platform. And so we have, social media templates, or we have flyer templates. And there's a place that says, put your logo here. If you just want to put your logo there, call it good, fine. If you're like, I don't like this, you can redo it. You won't hurt my feelings. They're all editable. We try to make it as easy a lift as possible, but there is some lift in terms of getting the word out on that local level. So that's what you can expect from us. What is expected of you as an operator? So we do ask that we have a point of contact to help coordinate and to, spend time promoting it on the local level. That in terms of, what kind of our expectation would vary, one on the season. We're both in winter, it would definitely be more of a seasonal type of work. And also in terms of how you operate. So if you're asking gardeners to drop off, the lift is definitely lower than if you're coordinating a volunteer to go and do pickups on a certain day. That would be much more involved. I've mentioned Denver Food Rescue. They actually use this as a youth employment opportunity. And so they hire youth to ride these really fancy trikes, which are very nice, to go and pick up the produce. So their lift is very high. And I would say that's kind of the high extreme, the low extreme being asking gardeners to just drop off at your facility, during your open hours. I think we're anticipating and averaging, 2 to 4 hours a week would be kind of what we would recommend for kind of a successful program. You're able to operate in whatever makes sense in your community. So if you want to do pickup, if you want to do drop off, if you want to do both, you can. We're happy to talk through ideas in terms of how others do operate. But we trust our operators to know their community and their organization and resources best. So if you're like, yeah, we just would want people to drop off, great, fine. Like I said, happy to talk through ideas, but like I said, we trust you to know yourselves best and try to have it be as flexible as possible. to help promote it locally that I've already mentioned. And then we do have an annual licensing fee that ranges from $200 to $350. That's based on your organization budget size and can be waived for groups that are all volunteer or budgets under 50,000. And that just helps cover a portion of our annual tech maintenance. If any of you are involved with tech, you know, things change and change fairly rapidly. And so we do want to make sure that we're staying, that the app is, you know, working correctly and functioning as it should be and staying on top of those types of things. So why would you do this? You know, we see in terms of what is that value piece of being part of Fresh Food Connect, you know, really looking at procuring that healthy, local, fresh, hyper local produce. This is not going to replace any of your ways that you're getting food produce right now. Like, this is not changing your relationship with the regional food bank. This is meant as a value add. So just to give kind of a scale, Denver Food Rescue, that's one of our founding partners that's been involved for a while now. They have 8 zip codes here in Denver and average about 5,000 pounds a season. They distribute almost, I think, 1 million pounds of food. So it's still not a huge portion of what they distribute, but also in terms of the quality and in terms of having access to that healthy produce and engaging more folks, like they see that as a real value. Increasing the engagement of community members. So like I said before, it's not just we want gardeners to donate their extra produce, but we want them to be engaged and to know you and to know what you're doing and get involved. And that's definitely something that takes some time and takes is a bit of an evolution. So you saw Terrence and Heather, they didn't go from, you know, planting a garden to being a board member. Like, that took a few years. But it is another way to engage more community members in your work you're doing. We try to make sure that the app is a really simple and easy thing to use. And we are continually working on how can we make it simpler? How can we make it easier? To be really try to remove any of the barriers to really just encourage gardeners to be donating their extra produce. And then, like I said, our partners are awesome. And they're all super cool. And I really like making connections. And so, you know, if you're struggling with something, happy to connect you directly with somebody else who may be experiencing that, or, you know, really connecting even broader than just the work you're doing. Because as you all know, there is a lot of need out there and we all don't need to be recreating wheels. And so however we can work together and share ideas, I'm a big proponent. So I'll let you just read this quote, but, you know, in terms of being able to think about how we can engage more community members in a different way, being able to access more produce, you know, I think we want a meaningful way that gardeners can engage. And I sometimes just step back and think about, like, if we know that 1 in 3 Americans garden, just imagine if every one of those gardeners just planted 1 extra plant to share in their community. Once again, the idea of this is small donations from a large number of gardeners that can aggregate to a meaningful amount. That amount could be like incredible. Yes, it's seasonal and all of those types of things, but I just think of the potential of this. And also in terms of the potential of being able to access things that you might have a hard time procuring. So I am notorious for donating mints, because if you're a gardener on this call, you know I have mint in my garden. That is not a great thing. I see John shaking his head. Yeah. So I donate it every week. They get mint. And the Denver Food Rescue and their partners are like, we love the mint, because that is not something that we have access to, and nor could they like purchase to be able to give to, because it's just cost prohibitive. So thinking also about, like, what are some of those culturally appropriate items that can grow in your climate, that people might have a hard time, that you might have a hard time procuring. You know, Heather and Terrence mentioned tomatillos. Here in Denver, we have a large Latino population. Tomatillos fly out the door. And once again, if you've ever grown tomatillos, you have to grow 2 plants, just FYI, did that mistake once. But they grow a lot, and I can only make so much tomatillo salsa. So yeah, I'm happy to share them. So we also, I keep talking about Denver Food Rescue because they're my operator and they're one of our founders, and they're also our largest operator. And so we do have a little short video that I'll share that talks from their words.
Is a community-led, volunteer-driven nonprofit organization that operates throughout Denver. We have about 23 no-cost grocery programs. Our teen employees pick up the food from this garden and it goes over to Thomas Bean Towers, which is a Denver Housing Authority building housing mostly seniors. And I think it's amazing that it's about 10 minutes from pulling it out of the ground to it being handed out to seniors.
And I have actually gone and like done the pickups and drop off just to have that experience. And literally that food does not even hit that table. Like the seniors are so excited. It's a senior living facility that is income limited. They do have their own kitchens. They have a culture and history of knowing how to cook that produce, and literally does not hit the table. Like they were grabbing stuff out of the boxes before I could even put it on the table. It was super appreciated and wanted and needed. Ironically, that facility is located across the street from a grocery store. As I mentioned, it's income limited seniors. A lot of them do get food stamps. They usually get like $30 a month. They can't afford that fresh produce. And especially when it was like collards or hot peppers, it was like gone. So it definitely can have a meaningful impact. And as we expand, we work with a lot of different types of organizations. So we don't necessarily have like, you have to be a food pantry, you have to be a food rescue, you have to be, XYZ. We work with, a youth environmental justice organization. We work with gardening organizations. We work with food banks. But as we expand, what we are really looking for is some value alignment. We are looking for groups that are very community-based, that have a focus around healthy food access, not just food access, and are looking to engage more folks in the work that they're doing. So as you can imagine, that's kind of a hard Google search. So we've been casting wide nets in terms of who's interested in working with us, because we really do see this as a value add to the work that you all are already doing. None of our operators solely operate Fresh Food Connect. It's all a value add to the work that you all are already doing.
Denver.
So what kind of impact are we seeing? So in 2022, so this year that just happened, we've had over 2,700 people who've downloaded the app. That's translated into 75,000 pounds of homegrown produce, with those 82 partners impacting 45,000 people. We're still getting our legs under us, and we see a huge potential. I think, they piloted it here in Denver. We have a proven strategy. We've had some success in terms of expanding. We see the potential. There's a lot more room to grow. I mentioned earlier that we're active in 2,100 zip codes. That sounds like a lot. There's 40,000 zip codes in the US. So we still have a long way to go, and we hope at some point in someday to be available in every community for any gardener that would want to participate. And so if you're interested in joining our network as an operator, how we get from here to there is we do have an interest form, which we'll see if I'm savvy enough to, I think I am savvy enough. Let's see. I'm going to put this link into the chat. This is just a short form to get us some contact information, some base information. I do a call with everyone to make sure that we're clear about like what our expectations are, what the expectations are of the operator. We do have an agreement and the licensing fee. We then do an hour-long app training, which is more about making sure you fully understand how the app works and you see like what gardeners will see and have a good understanding of that. You give us your list of zip codes and we get your account created and you can start. We can move relatively quickly. It also is winter now. So we do have some time. We do try to encourage folks though to think about, even as new operators, starting to set the platform in terms of like, as gardeners are planning their garden, to think about, could they plant an extra row or an extra plant or that type of thing to be able to share back. And we have, once again, we have templates and language and graphics to help support that. We also very much view this as a long-term partnership. You know, you all are in New York, you have winter, this is not a year-round thing. Gardeners have to plant the stuff, they have to grow it, they have to love it, they have to harvest it. And we view the partnership with our operators in that long-term capacity as well, in terms of seeing that it will grow over time. And I think that potential is what's exciting to me, because I don't think we fully have reached our potential. And I get real excited because when you start to do the numbers and think about how many people are gardening and what that potential impact could be, it does become quite impressive. But we have to start, we start small and we have to start somewhere. So that is, and this is just a map. These are obviously not very pinpointed, but you can just get a sense of kind of generally where we're currently active. And so I have not been looking at the chat at all, so I don't know if anyone has asked a question, but we can open it up for questions.
No questions yet in the chat, but I do want to just say that Laura's been really great to work with, and the conversations that we've had on food insecurity and things like that. And that's why I was excited to share this meeting with you guys, because I thought that the program really has a lot of potential. And as she said, it's an untapped potential that I think is just waiting to be tapped into. But Laura helped give me some promotional things to kind of make it enticing to you. So obviously it kind of worked if you're here. So that's just what I wanted to add on to there, but definitely if you have any questions, please speak up. It looks like Lynn did have a question. Do we sign up individually or through the regional food bank?
So as I mentioned, we casted a wide net in terms of like, as we started to expand of like, who would be interested in this? And we have had some partnerships with some food banks. And to be perfectly blunt and honest, because that is how I am, I think that it is more effective to sign up individually than through a food bank. And the reason why is because I send out a fair amount of emails in terms of those suggestions, in terms of like, hey, here's a social media post. So if you were to do it through the food bank, that would go to Catherine, and then Catherine would need to probably send it to maybe a regional coordinator, or maybe she could send it directly to you. Like there's just steps. And what we have found is when there's more steps, it just doesn't work quite as well. We have tried to keep the licensing fee as low as possible to reduce as many barriers as possible. So I do encourage it. I think it's more effective to do it individually. That does mean that we have more partners that we're working with, which isn't a bad thing, but it also just lends more to that local connection piece. And I think it's more effective that way. Other questions? So I can see the chat, Catherine, so but I will repeat them for the recording. So our operator is able to enter and engage with only one zip code. You can activate as many or as few zip codes as you want or need. So we trust our operators to know their community best. So here in Denver, like I'm not driving to the west side, I'm on the east side, like, and so, we kind of encourage that here because we know the city, but like, your community best. And so if you want to do drop off, and let's say you're more of a rural community and like, it's not a big deal for people to drive into town, even if they're, 20-30 miles outside of town, because that's what they do. Like, it's just not a big deal. I've lived in rural places before. Distances are much different than they are here in a city. That information best, and your community best. So you're welcome to activate as many or as few as you want. what ends up happening is if there are multiple groups that are interested in same area or similar area, I have you talk. I'm a big proponent of transparency and collaboration. And once again, you know your community best. So if it makes sense for one organization to take the east side and the other organization take the west side, cool, fine. If you want to just partner and have it be one as an operator and the other one as a support or that type of thing, totally good. But you all know your community best, so I defer to you all. But you're welcome to activate as many as you want. Within reason. I've said no to once to somebody. They wanted to activate the whole state, and I was like, I don't think let's start a little smaller, and then you can always add more if you want. So I give them the county that they were at. Is the zip code where the pantry is located, where the guests reside, or where the gardeners are located? That's up to you all. Oh, in terms of, you would activate zip codes. And generally gardeners would be entering their location. You would enter your location. In terms of where the food goes, that's up to you all. So the app is helping with the connection points on the front end in terms of gardener to hunger relief organization. From the hunger relief organization to where that food goes is your internal process. So that would be wherever you know where it can be utilized the best. So some of our groups, for instance, well, actually, sorry, I'm just referring back to Denver Food Rescue so much, but they mentioned they work with 23 organizations with their no-cost grocery store program. Fresh Food Connect food does not go to all 23 partner organizations. They have evaluated their partner organizations and said, who can utilize fresh, whole produce the best? And so from that 23, they, I believe, work with 4 or 5 that food then goes to. So for instance, if you're working with unhoused folks, giving them a raw eggplant, not very helpful. If you're distributing food to, families that have cooking facilities, that raw eggplant then makes some sense, or it's a senior living facility or those types of things. Once again, your community best. Some of our partners just have a market choice, pantry. It just goes into their pantry. It's distributed with the rest of their food. Totally fine as well. Linda, did that answer your question?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. I had to unmute.
That's okay. And you all are welcome to just unmute and vocalize your question too. I'm totally fine with that. I can actually stop sharing my screen so you don't. I mean, that is really cute though. The little heart. That's not what I wanted.
So just a quick question. So the zip codes, do the pantries share a zip code like they'd have, because our pantry, we're right in the middle of downtown Albany. So I wouldn't have any people that grow anything right where we are. So if I wanted to put down a zip code for somebody, colony or something like that, can you share zip codes? Can another pantry have the same zip code that I would use?
Not right now. So zip codes are exclusive. So what would happen is, let's just say you're first to the table and you want to activate all the zip codes in your entire area region. That's fine. Once again, we would defer to you to know if that's reasonable. My usual gut check to somebody in terms of how many zip codes should they activate is, if you're a gardener and you have 5 pounds of tomatoes, how far would you be willing to go? And the reason why I do that instead of a mileage or that type of thing is it really varies. And especially if you're in more of a rural community, distances are different, and those types of things. So, so that's my gut check. 5 pounds of tomatoes, how far would you be willing to go? Either whether you're picking it up or they're coming and dropping it off. The other way people handle it too is they might have different drop-off locations. So they might have a large number of zip codes, but then have kind of different locations that potentially could be closer to where those people are living. So some do that in community gardens. Some do that with just partner organizations that they're already working with. it could vary. So, but in the case of you're first to the table, let's say you activate all the zip codes, another group says, hey, I want to do this too. Once again, I would have you two talk of like, how does it make sense to divide up? I would also just maybe push back on like downtown Albany isn't growing things. I'm in 80205, which is where we founded Fresh Food Connect. It's a very urban neighborhood. And is there potential more growing elsewhere? Yes, because it is very densely. I mean, it's in the center of the city, but also I think you might be surprised by how much is growing. Especially, I do know that Albany has a very good and active community garden network. So that there might be more potential than you might think.
Great. Thank you. What's the time frame of signing up? When would we do this since we're in the middle of winter?
We do it rolling. So whenever is fine with you. If you want to capitalize on a growing season, I would say kind of sooner the better. In terms of how long does it take? I would say we can move relatively quickly. You can, get signed up, in like a week, but I would say most people average probably about a month to like sign the agreement, get things back to me, do the training and all those types of things. It generally takes about a month.
Great.
And like I said, part of the reason why we do it rolling is we see this as a long-term partnership. So, if you sign up, middle of season, I wouldn't expect a lot that first season, but also, we see this as a long-term partnership and would only see it continue to grow, which is why we do it on a rolling basis.
Great. Thank you.
Other questions? I was just so thorough.
It sounds like a great program. I'm very interested.
Great. Well, I'm gonna actually, because I probably should have put that other screen up.
Uh-oh, sorry.
No, you're totally fine. I'm just gonna reshare my screen because I was thinking, well, as cute as that heart is, we don't need that up. But if you're interested in learning more, go to our website. You can email me. My email is laura@freshfoodconnect.org. You can follow us on social media. You can also fill out the interest form, which, like I said, the link is in the chat. And once again, the next step is we would have an individual conversation, be able to answer any specific questions that you might have, make sure that everything was clear on today's presentation, and all of those types of things.
Great. I took a screenshot of that, so that's great. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions?
Hi, Laura, I had a question.
Sure.
So is there any kind of way to know, I know you said there's like a subscription fee. Is there any kind of way to know, how many gardeners are already engaged in the platform before, paying the fee? Just kind of know what you're, signing up for and know what you're getting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we have this very big chicken and egg conversation. Like, should we do garden outreach before we have operators in place so that you would be more enticed to say yes, and because we would have this list of gardeners ready to go? Or do we work on developing our operator network so that when we do gardener outreach in partnership with the operator, that we have a place to direct them? We have decided to focus on the latter rather than the former. And the reason why is, one, we do want to do that gardener outreach in partnership with our operators so that it's not just we want gardeners to donate, but we want gardeners to donate, to your organization, and that there's that connection. The other reason why we do that is, in this day and age, attention spans are super small. And so we don't want to get up gardener excitement to be able to utilize the platform and not be able to direct them to a place. So we have chosen to focus on building the operator network first, and then work with our operators to build that gardener community. So there may randomly be somebody who's tried to download the app in your community. There may not, but I would say we do have, you know, ideas, strategies, thoughts in terms of like how to get that word out. Some of that has to do with partnerships that you may or may not already have in terms of working with maybe your local extension in the Master Gardener program, or working with community gardens, or you know, if there's Facebook gardening groups, also just taking flyers to local garden centers or, you know, hardware stores. One of our organizations recently took flyers down to their local Ace hardware stores. So we definitely have thoughts and ideas about how to do that in collaboration with our operators, but we don't necessarily say, here's the app and it comes with gardeners. It's here's a tool and a resource to help you engage people in your community who are gardeners. So Catskill Food Pantry said, did I hear you correctly that the fee is waived for organizations with budgets less than 50,000? And that is correct. The other stipulation is 50,000 or volunteer. It can be either or. And how would you go about paying the licensing fee? So during the onboarding process, we send over an agreement. In that agreement, you tell us where you land on our licensing fee tiers, and I can share. So I'm going to share the slide deck with Catherine, and I can share our licensing fee tiers. So I'm going to make a note of that. So I can send that, and so Catherine can share that back out with you all, so that you can see that. But in terms of how it's paid, then you would receive an invoice. It's through our QuickBooks, so you can either, you know, pay with a credit card or send in a check. Either way is fine. That's mostly.
And I was going to add to that, if anyone needs to get in touch with Laura and doesn't have this information, you can reach out to me and I'll happily put you guys together. And as I said, this is being recorded, so I'm hoping to have this up on the website. So if you need to refresh yourself, or you'll have that information there as well. But yeah, this has been a really good informative meeting, so it's been really good.
Well, I really appreciate you all inviting me and for all the work that you're doing. You know, it's not great times. There are a lot of people really suffering, and what you all are doing is making a real impact in your local communities. And I really commend the work that you're doing. And we are looking for groups that are very aligned and that make sense and want to work with us, and, you know, see gardeners as another untapped resource in their community. So feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat. And yeah, if, like I said, if anyone has other questions, feel free. Sorry I was so quick, but I'll give you a little time back anyway with your time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and good to see everyone's faces again. And any questions, Laura's great. And if you need her information, you can reach out to me as well, and I'll make sure to get the information you need.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.